Hey.
Sometimes people don't actually realize that you're getting sleep is starts at the beginning of the day. So we're going to be talking about everyone's probably heard of your circadian rhythm, but a lot of times we hear that and it doesn't really have any meaning to us. But that's actually a survival mechanism that we had in our evolution. So this is in our DNA. This is something that all mammals really have because, and it regulates so much more than just our sleep. But that is one of the big parts of it. But when this is disrupted, and now we're realizing since so many people are, we have different lifestyles now. People are staying up later. We have devices. People do shift work. People do, versus when we were up with the sunrise and down with sunset, because that was the only safe time to be awake. So we have to think back, that type of our biology hasn't really changed. Our environment has immensely changed, but this is still kind of the same. So you can't ignore it. And a lot of people are and not worrying about it. And we're having huge health, crisis,
Because of
of
it.
it.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
think about the last couple of years as well. One of the takeaways from that is we learned how important sleep is. Not that we didn't know that, but that was a kind of a side, a reawakening, so to speak. No pun intended. But
Yeah.
anyway, today we want to get into this because it's affecting our running performance, which is the bottom line. Is we want to make sure that we stay injury resilient, as we talk about all the time, and we can keep running as we age. And this is a critical piece
This
to
is
that. Right?
absolutely, we're not in our 20s. We can't keep hammering our bodies and we want to be able to run and we want to be able to do all those things. And that's great. But we have to optimize our environment. We have to optimize everything else around it so we can keep doing that safely and not, our passion for running cannot wreck our health,
Exactly. Yeah, that's
and
the
that's,
key piece to this, right? So today we're going to talk about the surprising impact of your circadian rhythms, really how it affects your running. Even though we know this is
circadian
just
rhythm.
rhythm. Yeah. Oops, I got S in there.
See, this is when I don't check his.
She doesn't check some things on me, and then yeah, and it's
Yeah.
going to be throughout the entire. It's everywhere. So sorry about that, babe.
Okay.
My bad again. Well, we went through that, but anyway. So yeah,
Oh,
here
you did do the whole thing.
I did. Yeah, it's everywhere. So as we say each week, sorry about that. So as we say each week, this is not medical advice. We're
No,
giving you guys information that we researched so you can think for yourself, do your own research. We strongly encourage that.
absolutely.
We're not telling you what to do, but we're telling you what we do, and then you can make those own determinations. And we are hopefully nudging you to go do your own research. That's our goal, right? So,
Just remember, we want to not just survive, we want to thrive.
yep, exactly. So last week we talked about real quick the truth about running your knees. You've always heard this myth that running's bad for your knees. Just it's a complete myth, as we know. Running actually increases cartilage, increases your joint health, all those things which are important for us runners. We know that, and that is the reality of it.
Yep.
If you strength train, which is critical, we talk about that all the time,
Yep.
which is going to reduce your inflammation. And tips for that are obviously foam rolling, which we all don't like to do, but we need to do it,
Yeah, we
myself
need to
included.
have, like I said, those tight areas are going to impact our range of motion, our mobility, and ultimately, the muscles that attach, to your knee, to that joint. If any of those things are weak, unaligned, you get pulls, you get pain, you get, that joint can't move how it's supposed to move. So doing all of that helps to keep that joint healthy and keeps to us running without knee pain.
And then obviously a low inflammatory diet because it all starts with your nutrition. Everything is a foundation,
Yeah.
builds up from that.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about the surprising impact of circadian rhythm. I will fix that on your running performance. And
What did I not know?
yeah, you
See, he
missed it.
knows how he types
I type fast.
way
So
faster than I do. So he does put all these he types all these out, and normally I go back through and I check,
but whatever. We have to move on for right now.
Move on.
So anyway, what is it, right? It's our internal biological clock.
Yeah, like I said, all mammals have this. It is our 24-hour clock. It's reset, every day. But this controls a whole host of things. It's our sleep wake cycle, our hunger, our everything to basically for our health, our survival, our everything.
Yeah.
It is, it is so critical, yet we really don't kind of talk about it. It's kind of, it seems like it goes through phases, but now this is starting to come up a lot more because, like I said, we're realizing that so many people are out of whack from our environment now that it is affecting our health significantly. And when you disrupt this, like I said, we have the diabetes, we have the obesity rates, we have just tons of these things, and there's a lot of mitigating factors that affect those. But this is turning out they're realizing a huge part that's contributing to this. That is an absolute burden on our healthcare system. So there's easy things that you can do to kind of help this.
Yep. Because it impacts your hormone regulation, your digestion activity, if you're getting poor sleep. We know this, but it's just good to reemphasize this because it is so critical.
Yeah, that it is everything that's going on. It is part of it. We want to have all of these things optimized. We know running and all of that, we create stress hormones, it's cortisol, it's part of that. So you have to have your endocrine system working well to be able to produce the right hormones that are going to help us, and have them working optimally. When they're not, when our digestion's off, when we're not eating right, when we're not, we don't have the, sleeping right and doing all these things, our body's trying to do amazing things. It does. It's a very complex system or whatever. And when we mess this up, this is like the foundation, our clock. We're messing this foundational part up that cascades through
everything else. Yep. And yet we know this, but we forget it. That's why we're talking about this today.
Yep.
And the other thing that people don't realize is it impacts your blood pressure, which is a big deal. It's a big, big deal. If you're not getting enough sleep, it's going to impact your blood pressure and your blood sugar, which is going to impact your weight. And that's going to cascade from there.
So we know having blood sugar irregularities, that leads to over time, leads to prediabetes, and about 90 some odd million, people have prediabetes and don't even know it. So there's a lot of things that if this type of stuff is being taught, a little bit more of getting some of these basic things down to help mitigate some of these things that are happening later on. But like I said, it does a lot. It's very important, and we need to keep with our normal cycle of how it was supposed to be. But what do we have now? We have all kinds of things that keep these things that disrupted. Like I said, when I say 20% of the world population are shift workers. So they're literally working midnight to here
afternoon shifts, 4 to midnight. And that, that's not a traditional working hour, but they're necessary in society today.
But we know that can affect a lot of things. A lot of us travel. We go to different time zones. If you've flown over, especially if you've flown far and gone over different time zones or whatever, that jet lag you feel, that's because you've disrupted your normal internal clock. And a lot of people can experience jet lag for days just from one flight, especially if it's a long flight. You're flying over to Asia, you're flying over to, wherever it is. That is something. But if you know that, you can do things to mitigate that. And that's what we did. We traveled extensively, and I never really had jet lag. But I knew what it would do. I knew disrupting this. So I took preventative things to not have that. So if you have all these things on your radar, you can kind of start making those different changes, different things that you can do to have, to optimize this. Now, obviously, people that are shift workers are going to have to do a lot more, but there are things that can be done. Mitigating stress. You can't be stressed out all day. We live in a very stressful
society. We live in a, well,
you
you look at just life in general, it's stressful with the devices. The information coming at us is impacting our stress depending on how we internalize that. You can put that together however you internalize that. Eating late at night impacts us. We've all done it. We're guilty of it as well. But you got to be careful.
There's a lot of things you can change.
Obviously alcohol will impact your sleep deprivation. You think it might help you, but actually it hurts you because your body's not going. Just disrupt it, right? And of course, noise, which makes common sense in that regard.
Sometimes our environment, wherever your environment is, that might not be something, you might do more things to have to mitigate that depending on, like I said, where you live. But these are some of the things that really throw us off that, like I said, this is something internal, our biological clock kind of that is, inherent to us. So it's not something you can just ignore or not without having some pretty heavy side effects.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, temperature. If you're too hot, you're not going to be able to sleep. If you're in a hot environment where your bedroom is not cool, you're not going to sleep as well. Common sense, but it's good to reiterate that.
Mm-hmm.
So the side effects, basically, it's going to clearly impact your running performance, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you're not going to be able to. And yet we know this, but yet it's clearly going to impact your performance, which is what we're all trying to avoid. It's going to obviously cascade into your energy level. The big thing that we also know, is your ability to focus. When we're tired, we don't focus. And we're all guilty of that.
When you've gotten a good night's sleep or whatever, your energy levels, your focus, your clarity. But when you don't, you have that brain fog. There's so many people talk about brain fog, but we know that's not a normal, natural thing that we should have. But we kind of accept it that it happens a lot. It shouldn't be happening a lot because we need to be mitigating the things that we can change. So
it's going to impact your ability to be motivated to go run, to motivate to make those decisions, to eat healthier. It's going to impact all of that because again, you're not thinking clearly because your cognitive performance is off. Which also is shockingly is going to impact your coordination. So as runners, we want to make sure that we're coordinated with the strength training impacts that. So if you happen to be able to or have to just move to the side real quick, whether you're running in an event or you're running down some road and there's a pothole, you have to move real quick because you're not paying attention. You're listening to something. Your coordination and your reaction time are going to be impacted.
Yeah, they do studies on this a lot, and it's significant. And we know how easy it is when you have to watch that when you're tired, you've been running for a while. But just in general, tripping, falling, as we get older, those are the things that can be really detrimental to us, not so doing everything to optimize, like I said, our strength, our mobility, but this is a huge part of, we do all the stuff that we do with running. We run all those miles we want these adaptations to happen. We want to get faster. Those speed work that we do, it's hard. All that stuff is hard. So we want the adaptations for doing all that hard work. But these are the things that if we're not optimizing this other part of it or this other piece of the puzzle, all those things can actually be affected negatively. So,
well, even our strength, right? Which is why we talk about strength training all the time. This stuff, if you're not sleeping, you're not going to be motivated. You're not going to put that little bit of extra effort in to break that muscle down so you can recover, right? That's common sense. It's going to impact your endurance. So if you're training for a race because again, we all have those days where you just feel good. Like I'm going to go run 3 and then you end up running 5 because you just felt good. That 5 is going to help you out. So all those things are clearly impacted, right?
And we felt those along the way, but there's, like I said, so many things that are coming at us. So this is something we have to get right because it's like I said, the foundation of all the things that we do, all those miles that you're running. You want to get those adaptations. You want to get all the benefits for doing all that hard work. And when we have disruptions to our sleep and that normal circadian rhythm, that 24-hour wake sleep cycle, it will affect everything, especially, like I said, our performance. And that's
number one, right? Was what
you know, I mean, that's a big part of why we do all the stuff that we do, you know. So
because you want to keep performing, so we want to stay injury resilient, so we can keep running
Yeah.
and stay healthy as we age. I mean, that's
which we can do.
100%. Now, here are some tips for getting better circadian rhythm. Sunlight in the morning is the thing that people don't realize. I did not realize it was that important.
Now, and if you've noticed on my lives, I've stopped wearing sunglasses in the morning because maybe I've heard this, I don't know, but something on a podcast and a thing saying it's, you know, I knew sunlight is part of, you know, your melatonin. It tells your brain to stop, you know, melatonin's your sleep hormone. So it tells it to stop producing that because we have daylight, we need to be awake. But all of those nerves and those specialized cells that are doing this, they're sending those signals are in your eye, in your retina. So you need to see and have our sunglasses block those rays and block that. So in the morning, now I don't wear sunglasses. So part of it, but that is going to be having the mental clarity, having all of that, shutting off that melatonin is a huge part of waking you up, getting you ready, and having that clarity.
Getting natural light throughout the day. I mean, obviously, it depends on what your occupation is, but ideally, you need to get outside at some point and try to get as much natural light as you can.
Because this helps. Natural light. It's also serotonin is a big part of this too. So, you know, you feel better when you're outside.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that because that helps with your serotonin production too. We know that there's just seasonal disorder. That's an actual disorder because people, the days are shorter. If you live up north, they're really short, dark. You know, you might not see it. That literally affects your ability to sleep, your ability to produce serotonin and melatonin later at night. So
obviously, it goes without saying, but try to stick to a consistent sleep schedule. Easier said than done, but that is one of the things that will definitely help. Try to get 7 to 8 hours a night. I know, again, easier said than done. That's a goal because we know that when you get at least 7, you're going to feel much better.
It needs to be a huge priority.
Yeah.
And that, sadly, that sleep wake, you know, cycle to optimally do it needs to be within 20 or 30 minutes, not like hours. So if you're going to bed at 10, waking up at 6, it needs to be 10 and 6 with about a 20-minute variable if you want to optimize. So
right, exactly.
Easier said than done, but it's really important. So
yeah. So as the opposite, instead of getting it in the morning, which is what you want to start your day, you want to limit the exposure to any bright light in the evening if you can, which is going to come back to your devices, right?
yeah, I mean,
which is the key
that
thing
blue
here.
light from why they talk about blue blocker glasses and all that. Blue light's the same light from the sun. It's the same on the same wavelength. So, and you need to test. Not all blue blocker glasses are the same. You need to see whether it blocks. There's ways to test that. You can find that out. There's tons of things online, but they're not all created. Do a little research when you do get them. But ideally, once sun sets, you need to be getting ready for bed. You need to be. All these devices are telling our brain that it's daylight. We need to be awake.
Yeah.
And then people wonder why they can't sleep. You know, you need to actually start preparing for bed, getting rid of all of these things, shutting down. But like I said, that's not anyone's reality. Pretty much.
Try to be conscious of what we're trying to do. We are now trying to be more conscious of this. Again, at least an hour ahead of time. trying to avoid these. Easier said than done. But again, use the blue blockers. I wear these all day because I'm looking at the screens all day, way too much. There's different forms of them. Like Patty just said, we have to do our research on making sure they're ones that are actually going to be most effective. But they do help. I will say that they do help, and they're going to help in many, many ways. Yeah. Obviously, avoid caffeine and alcohol close to bedtime, especially caffeine. I mean, alcohol is the same. They're pretty much one and the same.
First of all, caffeine needs to be, the half-life of caffeine is 8 to 12 hours. If you are a fast metabolizer, you know if caffeine affects you or not. If you're a fast metabolizer, you can handle it a little bit later, and you know if you're not. So most people are going to have to stop it at noon.
Yeah, and you may recall back if you had a chance to watch the interview I did with our friend Ali from the UK, who we had a whole podcast and we did an interview. It was all about sleep, and he brought that up about, he said no later than 3 o'clock. That's his thing with his clients because of the effects it has in your body.
Yeah, it stays around.
Which stays around for a lot longer than we realize, right?
And alcohol is a complete disruptor. It is a toxin to your body. No, and I'm not saying don't drink, stop drinking, whatever, but know what alcohol is.
Exactly. Alcohol, as long as you know it,
is a toxin that your body has to prioritize and completely disrupts, we know this, disrupts your sleep cycles that you have throughout the night. So you may be asleep the whole entire time, but you're not getting you're not going through the different cycles that your brain needs to during sleep to repair, to download the day, to get yourself ready for the next day, to make those adaptations. Not happening. So take that for your choice as to whether you want to have alcohol in your life or not. So
yeah, exactly. Just be aware of it, which we all know. Obviously, you want to try to establish some type of routine, which include potentially a warm bath because you're going to be submerged in the water if you have a tub in your house. You don't try a warm shower. Reading a book, I've actually started doing that recently, which is really helping.
And not scary, riveting, like you can't put the book down. You don't want to be, you don't want your brain working when at least an hour before bed. So that's when it needs to be a boring book, soothing book, something like that. Medical journals are, there are some that, you want to fall asleep that work really well for that.
Yeah, exactly.
But like I said, you don't want to be doing anything that's going to be
mentally stimulating to a high degree, right?
Yeah.
So another thing to help with that is doing some deep breathing. That has helped each of us. Just calming the mind down, right? Which is a form of meditation. A lot of people think you have to meditate by Om. That's not meditation. It is for some people. It's not for most. It's not for me. It's just clearing the head out, just calming down.
Your breath has a lot of power. Our breath is how we get our energy. Our breath is how we start life and we end life. So remember how important your breath is. How important your breath is when you're running. When you first start running, you know how important it is because you lose it really fast. But this is what delivers your oxygen. This is what delivers, but in that fight or flight, sympathetic mode, that our body has, that would save us, will allow us to run from a, danger. Also, breath can tell your body instantly everything is okay. Breathing calms down. It calms down that sympathetic, reaction that we have, that we absolutely need, so we can react fast. But that part of it allows you to calm down and get into that parasympathetic mode that you need to be in if you want to be going to sleep.
Which then goes back to exercising or running regularly. If we stay in some consistent schedule in the morning, ideally, well, it depends on when your schedule is. Ideally in the morning, if you can make that happen, because it's going to improve your quality of sleep. It just is, right?
But you want, I know there's some people that can only go later at night. Ideally having 3 hours before you're going to go to bed, if you're going to do some, especially if it's a high intensity workout. It's just hard for your body. Your body needs to come down. Your body produces a lot of cortisol during that. It produces a lot of things. So you're not going to be able to shut down and be able to do everything that you need reparative part of your sleep if your body has all that going on. So just do with what you can, the best with you can with the schedules that you have. But ideally, it's first thing in the morning.
Yep. And then lastly, some biohacks that we are both kind of geeked out on. The stuff that works well for us. We encourage you guys to research this and consider this is time restrictive eating, also known as intermittent fasting, but now it's really being known as time restrictive eating. That is a critical component. That was the first step that we both took to
improving our health.
Improving our health. That was the foundational stuff, which it's that mindset of, oh, it's too hard. That's impossible. And it's really not. You just have to slowly, gradually work your way into it, which is what we both did. And it works.
But
works for us.
Your organs, everything needs, there's a lot that happens during digestion. And when you eat, your body prioritizes that. It prioritizes that. So if we're eating constantly throughout the day, that may work for some people, but you are asking your organs and your body to be constantly having to digest. They say rest and digest. Well, you're either resting or digesting. If you have food, your body is going to have to do that. It's not going to be able to do the reparative stuff that it does when it at rest. So.
Yep, exactly. Blue light glasses, we already talked about that. Sunlight exposure within 20 minutes of waking, ideally. We mentioned that earlier, but that is a key thing.
That's a super hack if you can make it happen. Not everyone can make that happen, but if you want that optimal, the cells, your retina, if it's bright out, you only need about 5 minutes. If it's cloudy out, you need about 20 minutes duration out there. But if you can do that within 20 minutes of waking, that ideally gets that whole process going.
It starts out the day, right? And then
but most of us probably can't do that. I don't even get to that. I'm usually out in 40 minutes of getting up. But I'm still getting that. I'm still doing that. Would it be better if I could make that? Sure, but you do with the best you can with what you have.
Yeah. Now, supplementation. This should not be your core. The other stuff should be your core, but it does help. We talked before about this. We use this glycinate.
That's been a game changer.
That has been a game changer for both of us. I mean, a game changer. And so it allows us both to sleep better because our bodies, as we get older, are not producing enough of it. Your body naturally produces some, but you need others forms of it.
This is amino acid that your body naturally produces that is not even one of the essential ones, but not enough.
But just not enough, right? You get some through food, but again, people are not. If you're not eating the right foods, you're not going to get enough, which is why we try the supplementation.
But this actually, glycine, what it does is it lowers your body temperature. So if you want the benefits for sleep, you got to take it an hour before bedtime. You have to cool your body 2 degrees for you to be able to go to sleep. That is why everyone talks about the 68 degrees, 65 degrees, having your bed cold, having your all of these things happen because you will not be able to fall asleep unless your body temperature drops 2 degrees. They know that. So this helps with that.
It helps. It's helped a lot for us. And then, of course, magnesium, which we've talked about. Magnesium is such a foundational aspect of our health.
Yeah, with it's involved over 600 different enzymatic reactions in the body. We know how important it is. Glycinate seems to be the one that works better for sleep. So magnesium glycinate, I take probably double the amount of dose that is recommended. You have to talk with your doctor to see if that's right for you, but optimizing your magnesium levels would be another key thing to really dialing in this.
Yep, exactly. You can consider using the light box therapy. You can, go online and do some research on that, but that's something as a biohack.
For shift workers. I mean,
it's a big deal. Yeah, that's a big one for shift workers. Yeah,
it does work. If you're in some place or you don't have the ability not to have the normal things, then these things, red light therapy at night, there's a lot of the near red light. There's a lot of the biohackers out there. It is insane what they are doing to optimize these things. But near infrared therapy at night, having only that type of light in the evenings can really, really help to mitigate some of the, like I said, all the environmental things that are happening to us. It really helps to set the body right and improve health. But they're not inexpensive. So do your research and see if you want to take it to one of the next level type. These are definitely, some of these things are like, if you really, really want to dial this in.
Yeah. And then, of course, this is an easier one, is the topper mattress, which are cool, and you can get those online. Some are more expensive than others. But again, for that little bit of expense, just think about this, that little bit. If you end up sleeping better, how much better are you going to feel?
Yeah.
And just think about it from that perspective.
They have ones that are pretty,
really, really high end. Yeah.
The technology where it senses your temperature, it cools it down, and then you can set it to where it warms you up, so you naturally wake up. So
yeah,
you can go to, like I said, a whole next level of these things. There's a lot of ways about it, but fixing probably a couple of these things, are inexpensive. We wanted to give you
just some options here, right?
Some options, and just to see. Like I said, glycine has been the biggest thing. I've always taken magnesium. I just switched to taking magnesium glycinate. So that was one of probably the easiest things. Him getting blue light glasses and trying to get to bed earlier. I mean, do with what you can. But like I said, if you're already, things are pretty good and you want to be like, oh, I can make them better. There's also, there's a few of these things too that can really do that. But there's a lot of apps.
And there's also apps which are the least expensive, right? Of all this stuff, there's some apps. Her sister uses one, makes a noise, and it helps her sleep. And so those are the types of things that will work. You got to figure out what works for you, right? But these are ideas for you guys to research.
Yeah, the sleep space one it's actually pretty advanced technology. It would be something that he's talking about noise.
My point is there's a variety of apps. The sleep space one is a little bit more advanced.
And it would it actually will tell you how you're sleeping, if you're getting in the right cycles of sleep, and how deep, and all that. So you can, like I said, you can take it to whatever level you want. But that's the beauty of all the technology that we have, that you can do, and you can find out those things. And I encourage anyone, if you are not sleeping well, or if you're feeling fatigued during the day, or you're not feeling good, there is a reason for that.
Yeah.
These are some of the things. Fixing the easiest things first. You should be going to bed at 10. You should be getting up around 6. You shouldn't be up till 1 o'clock in the morning. There's no midnight is the middle of the night. That's why it's called midnight. So if that's when you're hitting the bed, it's just not ideal for how our body was, our internal clocks to work, right? So
yeah. Exactly. So in closing out today, as we've said each week, because nutrition is the foundation of everything, and I mean it's everything, right? And this all builds on top of that. As we even talked today, it's going to impact your sleep. If you guys are struggling to any degree, you can go to runtips.us/call. That's runtips.us/call. I'll put it in the bottom of the screen here as well. And that will help you guys, because we know a lot of people get stuck. They just don't know where to start. They're like, I'm trying, it's not working. I get this back and forth. And again, life is coming at us. We have our devices, and it's always, guess what? That's not going to change, right? And now we've got so much information coming at us, let alone your daily life, your family, your work situation, world events. All those things are impacting everything. So if you get stuck, you can go to runtips.us/call. Set up a time with us. We'll give you guys a couple of tips to get started. And if you want to go further, we can do that. But really, just that call will help you get started. We had one just this week with somebody, and they were so thankful just to have that sounding voice, that outside edge,
need a little support.
Little support, exactly. It's that guidance for that support, which is what this group is all about as well. That's why we're doing all these every week, to kind of help motivate you guys, encourage you to do your own research, as we say all the time.
All right.
So with that, we're going to end here today. You guys have a great weekend, and
happy Saturday, everyone. And today is Kentucky Derby Day. If anyone is a Kentucky Derby fan, so we'll find out
who the winner is going to be, right?
How that goes.
All right, guys.
But have an awesome day.
Great weekend and a great day.